The music is so loud that it is deafening. Blue and purple neon lights pulse with the rhythm of the neurotech beats that fill the room. You have been to the Siphon before, but that was long ago. You never intended to return to the notorious Electro Club in the east of Berlin. It's one of those places where they ask you to hand in your augmented reality glasses to stop you from recording a video. You're not sure why you are here. Your friend Andre has asked you to come, and he has been quite insistent about it. He had said something about his job at Nubicon and that he needed to talk to you as you were someone he could trust. It all sounded quite odd, but not quite as odd as the strangeness in his voice when he declined to tell you what this was all about. It was because of this that you agreed to come. Now, here you are at the Siphon's main bar where Andre wanted to meet you. However, Andre is not. And worse, he does not answer his phone. Perhaps you should look around to find him. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, earlier this year, we took a look at a game called Civitas Nihilium. And this is a game, a kind of solo detective adventure card game set in a really cool cyberpunk world. And this game quickly became one of my favorite games I've played this year, and it will most definitely be on my top 10 this year. However, this game is really hard to find. I think I snagged one of two copies on eBay the day I heard about the game. And I think the Dungeon Dive community has pretty much cleaned out the last remaining stock from the designer. And yeah, it's really hard to get, and that is unfortunate. I don't know if this game will ever come back into print. However, there is some hope, and that is some neon hope. And this is a somewhat similar game. This is an adventure card game set in a cyberpunk world. The cyberpunk world of Neon Hope is a little bit different than Civitas Nihilium. There's a little more hope involved. This is kind of a mix between cyberpunk and solarpunk. Think of this game as the cybernetic offspring of the Arkham Horror LCG and Android Netrunner. If you combine those things, I think you'll have a pretty good idea of what Neon Hope is. So Neon Hope will be hitting crowdfunding, I think Kickstarter, in early 2025. So this is on the horizon. And after playing the demo version, this is a game that is definitely now on my radar, and I'm looking forward to seeing more. So this is a demo prototype version that was sent to the channel for review. And I think the best way to cover this video is we'll just kind of look at the major components, do a little bit of setup, and talk about how the game is played. So like Arkham Horror, the LCG, this is a scenario-based game where you are taking characters that have a deck of action cards and you're working your way through a scenario, trying to overcome challenges, building up your character with some additional tools and resources as you go. One of the main things that you will do in the game, or one of the main things you will have, is your staging deck. And these are all of the cards that are associated with the scenario that you are playing. Now, this demo version comes with its story cards on cards. I believe that the retail version, or the official version, I should say, will have these story snippets in a campaign book, in a storybook, like Arkham Horror does. So this demo version comes with one scenario, and the introduction was what I read at the beginning of this video. And this introduction scenario has 3 chapters: searching for your friend, backstage at the Siphon, and fight or flight. And on the front of each chapter card, you will have your objective, what you need to do. Then you will turn that over and you will have a little plot twist, something to further spur on your investigation. And then you will also have the way to add more additional cards from the staging deck into your encounter deck. So things do change as you are playing through the game. And then there are also a number of different conclusions that you can read depending on how you've played each scenario. The scenarios will take place in different locations. This first scenario here will take place in an Electro Club, the Siphon, and also the backstage. These are called the settings, and you will move through the settings as you move through the different chapters of the scenario. Each setting will have some different locations associated with that setting. For instance, the main electro club of the Siphon, you will have a bar and a dance floor. And at the bar, there's an NPC, the barkeeper. And so those are the things you can interact with at the bar. And then on the dance floor, you can interact with the dance floor. The same thing goes for backstage. You will have 2 different sets of cards for strangers in the dark. And so those are NPCs that you can interact with backstage when you get there. At certain points during the scenario, you will be told to add in these bad guys, these enemies. At the beginning of this first scenario, there are no enemies in the encounter deck. So you have some time to get your bearings, to get your investigation underway, and to learn some things about how the game is played before you have to deal with these enemies. Now, these enemies are called task cards, and there are 4 major tasks that you can take. And those are 4 major kinds of challenges that you will take, and those will be based upon your various skills and stats and the cards that you play in your action deck. So the various tasks are tasks. We can investigate, we can get support, we can fight, and we can hack. There's a lot of hacking in this game, which is really cool. That's a good thing for a Cyberpunk game to have. And as you can see here, there are a few major stats that the heroes and characters have. We have perception, charisma, courage, and technology. So for instance here, if we take a look at this enemy card, this is a normal enemy card. This is a freelance security officer. In order to dispatch of the security officer, we have to do a fight courage test, and we have to get a success of 4 or more if we to do damage to them, and that's their health there. If we get a success of 2 or more, then they retreat and they turn over, and we don't have to face the consequences of the bad things that might happen to them. If we fail to dispatch of them, or if they activate and they get to attack us, the bad thing they do is down here in the lower right-hand corner. In this instance, they will cause us 2 stress, and stress means that we have to discard cards from our hand. And as we discard cards from our hand, we will deplete our hands, and then at that time our endurance goes down, and then we draw up to a new total of cards and rinse and repeat until we either have won the scenario or one of our heroes, one of our characters goes down to 0 endurance. And the enemies range in strength. With this guy here, Mark Steelskin Casper. What a super cool Cyberpunk name. He is very strong, so he's kind of like a mini boss here. He has 10 health. He can be hacked, and then if he's hacked, we can add hacking cubes to his card to make him go away. So that's kind of cool too. We can not only hack computer terminals, but we can hack people because of their cybernetic implants. The other cards in the staging deck are all of the locations and NPCs that you'll interact with. I want to clean this up real quick so we can set up the staging deck here. Okay, so in this scenario, we begin at the Siphon Club, and we'll flip that over, and we are told to put a barkeeper and a bar on the top location and a dance floor at the bottom location. So if we go to our staging deck, we can find our barkeeper. The barkeeper, we can interact with her to get support. We need to get a 2 or higher, and then she can give us these tokens that will help us on future challenges. This is really cool. Once all of these tokens are removed from the card, that task is considered to be complete, and then you flip over the card, you add new tokens to the card, and then you have to get support with a 3 or higher, and once that is done, then you remove the card from the location and you get the final benefit. So you are trying to work on these cards during the game, and that's basically the kind of core loop of the game. So the barkeeper, we want to get support from her. She has a token for every single attribute. So we'll take 4 tokens here. We have our hope, our technology, our perception, and our charisma. And these are tokens that we can spend in order to boost our chances at using one of these stats. And each one of these can be used twice. So if we have a courage test, we can use this once to add 2, and then we can flip it over and use that one more time. So these all get stacked here on the barkeeper. And then we also add a bar, and there are 2 different copies of the bar, so you never really know which one you're going to get. We will place the bar here, and the bar has a number of secrets associated with it. And so there are 4 secrets here, and we have to investigate with perception to get a 2 or higher in order to remove the secrets. Once we've investigated the bar completely, then we flip it over, and then we meet a new NPC at the bar. This new NPC, Hyun An Bergman, she can offer us assistance in our courage tests. And as soon as we get help from her, get support from her 2 times, she joins us as a companion, as a follower. And then we'll get a permanent bonus of +1 courage once we have sweet talked her into helping us find our friend. Again, really, really cool. I like the systems in this game a lot. I like how they work together. Finally, our last location here is the dance floor. And so if we look at our cards here, we have 2 dance floors. Each of the dance floors we have to investigate with courage, get 3 or higher, and we have to do that 2 times to flip it. I like how we have to have courage on the dance floor. I think that's kind of cool. Maybe there's some kind of angst dancing, some kind of slam dancing, slam electro angst dancing going on. Whenever I think of a club with crazy music in Cyberpunk, I always think of John Shirley's City Come A-Walkin', which is my favorite work of Cyberpunk. And I love the way he describes angst rock. John Shirley is so good at writing about music and how it sounds because he was in punk bands, of course, before he became a cyberpunk author. But yeah, so we'll take our copy of the dance floor here. I'll put my other copy away. We will add 2 secrets. So again, we have to investigate with courage at a 3 or more. And then once we do that twice, we can flip that over. And then we can meet here. We can meet Maxim Wagner. And we can get support from him for 3 or higher to earn 7 technology chips. And then he can join us as a follower as well and help us progress through the other chapters. And so that is how we set up our setting there and our locations. We also have 2 different characters that we can play as in this scenario. And this game, or in this demo version, this game does play true solo, so you can play with only 1 hero, and it works very well. I've had no problems playing this demo game with only 1 hero. So we have Dennis Yilmaz and we have Larks Krajewski, and each one of them has a little standee that you will move from one location to the next. So there are the stats there: perception, charisma, courage, and technology. I'm actually surprised that Dennis Yilmaz only has 1 charisma. I mean, just look at his outfit. I think those glasses there alone are worth 1 charisma. And combining it with that shirt ensemble, that's at least a 2-point charisma right there. But I didn't design the game, so maybe the designer, hey, give Dennis 1 more charisma. Come on, look at him. But anyway, so the characters are made up of an action card deck and a tool card deck. So your tool cards, each character starts with 1 tool available, and the tool is double-sided. So we have a bionic prosthesis, or we have the Yilmaz.Deep 09 beta. So you can choose which one you want when you are starting the game. You also have access to additional tools, and these can be unlocked at certain points in the game when you are told to focus. And when you focus, that's when you spend your resources, and resources are a reward given for clearing out tasks. And then you can spend your resources to gain access to new tools. And so this is one of the main ways that your characters will level up during the scenario and from one game to the next by unlocking access to tools. We also have our action card deck, and this corresponds to our endurance. And endurance, again, if you go down to 0 endurance, you have lost the game, but endurance also dictates how many action cards you have access to on your turn. And so when you're playing a solo game, you start with 10 endurance, so that means you have a hand of 10 action cards. As that ticks down, each time you have to redraw your hand, you will have fewer and fewer cards in your hand, so you will be taking fewer actions as your character becomes more stressed out. However, each of the characters only has a deck of 8 action cards, so how do you get those other 10? Well, if you take a look here at, I think I already have these mixed in here, but Dennis Yilmaz, his suit is spades. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 of his spade cards. To bring him up to 10, you take 2 cards from a hero that you're not using. So I will take 2 cards from Lark's here, and I will add those to Dennis's deck. And so now I have my 10 action cards that I will be using in this scenario. These action cards can do a number of different things. They will allow you to accomplish tasks. Remember, there are 4 different tasks: hack, investigate, hack, investigate, fight, and get support. And so this data breach here, it can help you investigate and hack. The assess risk can help you fight and hack. Upgrade the odds can help you investigate and get support. There's fight and hack, and so on. There's your main get support card. And these will give you bonuses that you add to your attributes in order to hit those target numbers. It's a meet or beat system, so you want to hit the target or go above. And some of them will add an impact, and the impact is a green check mark. And that means that you get to gain the benefit twice. So if I was trying to get support from the barkeeper and I used a get support card and I was successful and I had an impact, I would not just gain 1 chip from the barkeeper, I would gain 2. If I was doing that to an investigate, then I would gain 2 of the secrets rather than just 1. So using impact at the right time is a really important strategy in clearing out the cards and making sure that you are using your cards efficiently. Each of the cards also has something that you can do when you are successful or when you fail. So if you were to use this data breach and you successfully hacked, if you succeeded by 2 or more, you would get an additional impact. So hey, that's pretty great. Sometimes you will also get a bonus if you fail. And usually those bonuses come in the shape of these hope tokens. And hope is a currency. You begin the game with 3 hope. Hope is a currency that you can spend to stop the effects of stress. And again, stress causes you to discard cards from your hand, so you can spend your hope to stop from discarding cards from your hand. So that's a very, very powerful currency to keep in mind during the game. But these action cards are cool. I like putting together combos, and I like how they interact with each other, and they promote just careful planning, and they are fun to play. However, these aren't the only things that we'll be adding to your tasks. Like Arkham Horror, the LCG, we also have a number of chips, and you will build a pool of chips at the beginning of the scenario based on the scenario that you are in. And these chips range from being really bad to being really good. Like Arkham Horror, I imagine that there will be ways to add more beneficial chips to the pool if you want things to be a little easier, and remove some of the bad things if you want things to be a little harder. So on the bad things, we have an epic fail. This will just cause you to fail and you will have to take some damage. We have these skull tokens here. Those will cause the enemies to attack you. Plus you have to draw an additional chip. So those are some of the bad things. We also have bad things in the form of negative modifiers. So again, you're trying to hit target numbers. So you might have to draw a -3, a -1, or a -2. We have a couple zeros in our pool, so those don't modify anything at all. And then we also have some positive modifiers of +1, +2, and +3. And so these are all of the chips that we are using in this demo version. We shuffle those up, and there's a thing called the archive. And what we do at the beginning of the game, after we've assembled our pool and shuffled it up, we randomly draw 3 chips to be added to the archive. So we never know exactly what chips we have access to in our pool. So you could put these in a bag. The game has you put them in a grid shape, kind of like this. I think it's kind of cool. Whoops, I saw that -2 there. I think this is kind of cool. It's very matrixy. It's very cyberpunk to have something in a grid, but you don't have to keep them in a grid. It can be a little messy. There will be opportunities during your adventure where you will be told to analyze the grid. And when you analyze the grid, you can choose a number of tokens depending on how good you are at analyzing. Usually you can analyze for 2. You can draw 2, look at them, ooh, nice, and then discard 1 to the archive and then shuffle the other one back in. So there are ways to mitigate this luck, And I think this is a cool system. This is one thing that I do really like about Arkham Horror. I like this system here. You will also be engaging with an encounter deck. And at the beginning of the first scenario, your encounter deck has no enemies in it. But again, as you are working through those staged cards, as you are working through the scenario, you will be told to add certain enemies into your encounter deck. They have the same backs. So your encounter deck will change as the game is played. And these encounter cards are usually bad. Some of these don't have the completed art yet. They're usually bad. You usually have a choice of how you want to manage your hope, your resource, or take stress or something like that. Sometimes they are good. One of the main types of cards that you will be dealing with in the encounter deck before the enemies are introduced are these surveillance cards. So this is a surveillance state. This is a world that is under surveillance, under constant threat of surveillance. And we have these things here called the surveillance threshold. And this kind of governs the pacing of the game. This is kind of the timer. And this is another way beyond the chips. This is another way to augment the difficulty of the game. So we have a story mode and a challenge mode. The challenge mode, of course, is a lot harder. So I will put that aside because I don't like playing hard games most of the time. So we have our story mode, and we also have our threshold tracker, our surveillance tracker. At the beginning of the game, it starts at 0, and at certain points during your turn, you will tick this up, depending on how many heroes are playing, depending on how many enemies are at your spot, or depending on effects from a card. And as it reaches these thresholds, you will have to do the bad thing. So when it reaches 8, every character suffers 1 stress. When it reaches 16, 2 stress, and so on. When it reaches 32, we flip this card, then we do that. If it reaches 40, that is the end of the game. We have lost that scenario, and we read conclusion 1. Now, these purple cards from the deck, these are surveillance cards, and these are placed next to your surveillance threshold card. And these represent the network. So the network that is constantly governing, constantly surveying and spying and controlling a cyberpunk society, a dystopian cyberpunk future. These are things that you will also have to interact with. These are tasks that are mostly hacking tests. And so you want to hack the surveillance state in order to prevent the bad things from happening to you. So you're not only having to deal with the immediate plot things in the setting and what's going on in the story, but you're also having to worry about the overall world and how that is impacting your scenario. And I think this is really, really cool. I like that system a lot. There is also an additional way that you can augment the difficulty. This is one of the things that I really like about games like this, these kinds of modular games that offer up a lot of different opportunities to make the game as hard or as easy as you like. So we have these encounter cards here. We have some good ones and some bad ones. And so when you're playing the normal game, you add 4 of the good ones and 1 of the bad ones to your encounter deck. If you wanted to have a little easier game, you could add 1 more of the good ones. If you want to have a more difficult game, you can add fewer of the good ones and more of the difficult ones. That's just really nice. That's really thoughtful. That is a game that respects the player and how they want to play. So you would just add these to your encounter deck. These are kind of like, nothing bad happens and you get some hope. And the bad ones, you have to draw 2 more cards. So once the enemies get added into the deck, you can very quickly become overrun with enemies. But on a turn, you will have 3 actions, and you can keep track of your actions with these tokens here. So you will have 3 actions in order to accomplish those tasks, in order to maintain control over the surveillance state and keep your surveillance threshold down so you don't run out of time. And again, you're trying to remove the tokens, flip the cards over, remove them from the setting in order to flip over your plot cards, and then you go on to the game progression, and then that tells you more cards to add from your staging deck and how the game progresses until you finally get to chapter 3. Then you win, you finish up all of your cards on chapter 3, turn that over, and then that tells you which conclusion to read, and then you will be done with that scenario. So yeah, this is a neat game. I love the art. I love the kind of vaporwave vibe. I think it's really cool. I like vaporwave and chillwave and Mallsoft music a lot. I'll post a link to a really good playlist that I keep of all kinds of really great Mallsoft and vaporwave music. And so I dig this style of cyberpunk quite a bit. This kind of Miami Vice neon pastel cyberpunk I think is super cool. I like the dark kind of dreary Blade Runner cyberpunk as well, but I think I might prefer this style, this kind of a neon city style. But I like the way the action cards play. I like all of the different options that we have to make the game easier or harder. I think the characters unlocking these tools at certain point does add that really cool sense of progression. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of deck building in between the scenarios. That's one thing that I don't like about Arkham Horror, the LCG. I don't like that kind of meta game deck building. I don't mind deck building when it's part of the game, when it's a deck building game, but I don't like thinking about, what cards can I combine to get really cool broken combos. I'm just not into that as a game mechanism. So I'm hoping that Neon Hope keeps that kind of meta game deck building to a minimum, but I also know that I'm probably in the minority on my opinion on that because I know a lot of people, they're absolutely their favorite thing about Arkham Horror, the LCG, is that deck building. So I am going to have to wait and see to determine if this is going to be a game I back or not, depending on how much deck building there is, how much metagaming there is in between the game. I'm also curious about the scope of the game. It's a little hard to get a good sense of the scope in this very small demo version with only one scenario. I don't know how many scenarios there will be. I don't know if the scenarios will form a campaign or if they're just one-offs. I don't know if there's progression from one scenario to the next. I also don't know how many randomizers there will be for replay value if you just want to play the same scenario a couple times. You know, right now we have a couple different dance floors, we have a couple different bars, we have a few different strangers in the dark, so you never know exactly what you're going to get, and I think that's cool. I like that kind of randomness. But Neon Hope is a game that I am looking forward to learning about more. I like the way it plays, I like the card system, and I totally dig the vibe and the world. So all right, you guys, well, I hope you enjoyed that brief overview of Neon Hope. I will post a link below to the website so you can stay up to date on any new information about the campaign that will be coming up early in 2025. We will talk to you later. Bye-bye.